Today is the third day of the June 86 retreat. At first, about the fire alarm, it was a false alarm, and the false detector has been replaced. There are doors, exit doors, right in this sitting room. If there is another alarm, and please let's not assume that it is a false alarm. Anytime this alarm sounds, let's get out. If there's another alarm, to use the exit nearest one, and these two exits here are the nearest exits for most people in this room. There are screens pinned lightly before the panic bar, before the door. The door can just be pushed and the screens will collapse. The other nearest door is the one as you come out the sitting room, going down to the left, taking that exit. There used to be a little string there, only used in case of emergency. We've removed that string. So in case of another alarm, use that exit if you're near the door or in the balcony area. And let us all, wherever we are, familiarize ourselves with what the nearest exit is. Yet using this exit, which is off of the balcony, down the stairs by the apartment, please only use it in case of emergency. A number of questions have come up about the difference between thinking and awareness. And also the question whether to be aware isn't an effort, as it is felt to be by many people. What is thinking? Where does it come from? Let's take right now, somebody was planted into this room who had never lived anywhere where there was wind. And the question came up, what is that sound? That person wouldn't be able to come up with a word because there's no memory of wind in that particular brain, and therefore no words to describe what is being heard. Because all of us are familiar with wind, we have associated this word wind with the sound that is being heard. So if we were asked, what is the sound out there, we would say it's wind, or a windstorm. If we were asked, what direction is this wind coming from? If we had no memory at this moment where west and east, north and south is, and our hearing also was not very accurate as to what direction, we again would have no memory, no knowledge to answer from. All we could say is, I don't know. Or the brain may begin to scan a bit to try to figure out, where did the sun rise this morning? There's a memory of that, isn't there? One remembers the light on those windows. And having learned very early in life that the sun rises in the east, from that memory one can say, this is the east. And in looking out, how can one tell where the wind is coming from? Some people can. They have knowledge. Maybe we can use a device. Sometimes it's very clear which way the grasses are bent, but there is still knowledge and memory involved in saying the wind is westerly, easterly, northerly. If that knowledge is not there, then all we can say is, I don't know. Also, in order to say wind, there has to be memory of language. If we had never heard or learned a language, we couldn't put that word to the sound. One can examine for oneself how thought arises from memory and cannot function without memory. In listening, right now, what is being heard is that a thought? Is that memory? Or is the word wind the memory, but the word wind is not what is being heard? What is being heard is not the word, even though a word is being said right now, not to confuse that. But when it goes like this, that's not a word. And the word wind or sunlight is not what is felt and heard. Do you see that? That the word wind is not what's going on. It's just a description of it. Is it possible to hear the wind without the description, without the word? And can one also see that the moment the word wind comes into the mind, what happens? Does this word associate with one's memories of wind, with one's reactions to the wind right now? I love the sound of it. How wild, how energetic. Or I'm afraid of wind. I don't know why, but their reactions to what is being heard, which is not the pure sound of it, the pure happening of it. There is the word, the naming of it, and then the reaction to it. I like it or I don't like it. Which is a mental and physical response, and not what is actually happening out there. Can the response, this is the wind, and the reaction to it, I don't like it or I love it, can that be perceived just as one listens to the wind, with the same kind of awareness? Awareness is not the labeling, it is not the reacting. But can it be listened to, attended to, just as one hears the sound? Noticing a thought coming up, a reaction coming up, just as one hears the wind. The same kind of awareness. The reaction to the wind is not the wind. Do we see that? Is it possible to listen to what's going on without the word and without the reaction? The thought may come up, am I aware now? That's a thought. In awareness, there's just what is there. Without the word, without the reaction. If word and reaction comes up, can it be seen instantly? And seeing that the likes and dislikes, the fear of it or the holding on to it, separates from what is actually going on. With the reaction, I like it or I don't like it, comes the separation of me with my past experiences, my preferences, my fears. And the occupation with all of that. The entanglement in it. Every word we say, every reaction that comes up is associated in the body-mind with thousands of other words and associations. Memory linked to memory, and memory linked to physical feelings, emotions, tensions. And these emotions again linked to further words and likes and dislikes. Once this chain reaction takes place, there is no hearing of the wind or of what is actually there in front of us. while one is entangled in one's reactions, the emotions these arouse, and the reactions to the emotions. I don't like this emotion, I don't want it. The maybe habitual repression of it. While all of that is going on, can there be a moment of awareness of that? It does happen. For a moment one is aware of being entangled in emotions and reactions. Does one immediately want to label, have a word for what is going on? I'm so scared, I'm so depressed. And then with the word, the reaction, one says I'm depressed, and once one has said that, the word already has an impact on the body and mind, and then not wanting to be depressed or wallowing in depression. It's the same process as we started off with, very simply, listening to the sounds, labeling and reacting, and then becoming embroiled in that process and removed, separated from what started out to be listening to a sound. The question that comes up all the time is, how can I practice this awareness? How can I become more aware? And also the assertion that, and one says this from the experience one has, whether that there is effort involved to being attentive. We're using the word attentive and awareness interchangeably. I have to make an effort to be attentive. Let's start from the beginning again, the whole process. Looking down in front of us, there's this here. Seeing it, is that an effort? It's just there. Hearing this, is that an effort? It's just there. Feeling it, the sensation in the knees, it's there. Right now that we're talking about it, we can open up and listen to it, see it. This here is just that. And that's what it is. If we say this is a mat, the word mat is not this. The word mat comes from memory. It's a word, but it's not this. The feel of it, the looks of it, the sound of it, is what it is. We can begin to have simple or elaborate or poetic words about it, but none of that is this. If I say it is a brown mat, the word brown is not this color here. It's a word. And if we were all to describe the color of this mat, we may get into some disagreement, particularly if we're trying to describe it very correctly. What kind of a brown is it? Actually, if you have nothing to compare it with, if there wasn't this around it, wouldn't even know whether it's brown. At night, is it brown? The important thing to see is that the word brown mat is words, which is not this thing. Can there be awareness of this here without the word? And listening to the sounds at the same time? If I don't call that wind and say it's outside and call this a mat and it's brown and it's inside, if I abstain from all labeling and directions, inside, outside, I abstain from making any such description. Make no description. I'm just listening and looking. Then is this separate from that? Becomes separate the moment I use the word inside and outside, because with that is associated a wall, a separation. But to just feel and listen and look, where is the effort? Because the mind is so quickly onto a word train or a feeling train, a reacting chain of reactions. And looking at this mat, one may react to the color, say, I wish it wasn't this dark brown, wish it was light tan or gray. Imagining a different color. Do you see where imagination comes in? One can picture a gray mat or a tan mat. That's not this thing. It's a reaction and then bringing up new ideas about how the mat could be if it wasn't brown. And then getting lost in redecorating the room. If I had my sitting room, how I would do it. That's thinking. That's not awareness. Thinking and fantasizing. Do you see that? It's so palpable. Imagining a room with tan mats, which isn't what is here. So then, someone says, to bring the mind back to what's here, namely attention rather than fantasy, that's an effort. The fantasy is going on of redecorating the room, having tan cushions, how to maybe get the material, where one could look to see nice materials, which would go so much better with this floor than this dark brown. And then, all of a sudden, waking up to the fact that one is fantasizing, that one is, fantasizing. At this point, someone says it's an effort to bring the mind back to awareness. But awareness has already happened. Or else one wouldn't be aware that one is fantasizing. No? If the fantasy can go on for 2 hours, but somehow or other one wakes up, realizes there was a fantasy. At that moment of waking up, it's in the past, or else there's no awareness that it went on. And then is there the thought, I should really be attentive. I should pay attention, I should be aware rather than fantasizing. I think it can be seen clearly that that too is a thought. Coming from memory of what I think and remember that I should be doing. I should be paying attention here, this is what I'm here for. And very easily this train of thought can continue or switch tracks, either feeling how poorly an attender one is, how hopeless, always getting caught up in fantasies, which is a new train of thought. Do you see that? But let's stay with the thought, I should be attentive. At this moment, there's already this instant of waking up and realizing one was in fantasy is already finished, because a new thought is there, I should be attentive. Then, does attention follow upon this thought? Does this thought, I should be attentive, bring about attention? Listening again to the sounds, to the breathing. Whatever is going on other than just thinking and reacting and fantasizing. If the thought, I should be attentive, brings about this attention, what is the effort? If it instantly opens up to what is actually happening. I wonder whether the effort that is felt, that needs to be made to be attentive, has to do with the very way in which we try to make ourselves be attentive. The willpower that we have learned to bring to bear upon our actions, the willpower to control our thoughts, to judge them as bad. We didn't get into this. At the moment of waking up, that there was a train of thought, if there's just the awareness now, then we have to exert no willpower. It's there. But if one attends very subtly and quickly, one finds there has been a judgment over the fantasies, about the fantasies. They're bad, they should stop. I have to control them. How can I control them? I must be attentive. So the willpower is brought to bear on what's going on, trying to control it, judging it. And where there is the will to control, there is resistance. If there was no resistance, there would need to be no will to control. If one didn't judge thoughts as right or wrong, good or bad, it's just what happened. It's over. It's finished. No attitude toward it, no judgment made. Then there's nothing in the way of listening. But our impulse to control ourselves, to control our mind, is already linked with resistance to do that. So, proportionate to the resistance to do it is the effort needed to overcome that resistance. Actually, with fantasies that do go on goes a great momentum of energy. We like our fantasies. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're scared of what we're thinking. And yet, a tremendous amount of energy is invested in these fantasies, fearful or pleasurable. All the emotions that are tied up with a fantasy have a momentum of their own, the physical momentum of what has been triggered through fear or pleasurable fantasies. And once the body has been aroused, its program is to continue, or at least barring any further input to go through with this program that has been triggered. It can't just be cut off. So is the effort that is felt needed to be exerted, is that effort the overcoming of the energies that the fantasy has aroused? Because there's this energy of body and mind in the fantasy. One feels one has to counter that with the energy of control. And this is what is felt as the effort. All of that is not awareness. It is reacting against reaction with our old conditioned means at our disposal: willpower, control, repression, or whatever we've learned over the years, judgment. So the question comes up immediately, like the sunshine pouring in through the window. Is it possible to see all of that? Feel the emotions that have been triggered through the fantasy, fear or pleasure. How it wants to continue, wants to run its course. One wants more of the pleasurable sensations. or the fearful sensations cannot just be stopped. Can there be sunlight shed upon all of that in an awareness that has no point of view, that does not react to what is felt and seen and heard and experienced? It has no labels for it, no words. It doesn't know. It's just intimately in touch with what's there. Inside and out, not making any differentiation because it has no words for inside and out. Awareness is not linked to memory. It can shed light on the function of memory, but itself, there's no memory. Just in sitting right now, one can feel the breathing, can't one? The breathing. Not the word breathing, but what's going on. Can one listen to it, feel it, experience it? It's there. Does one have to concentrate on it? Or is the awareness and the breathing not two separate things? And the wind and the plane and the birds, are they separate from this breathing? If I don't use any words, I'll leave the words alone and just listen in all openness. Is it clear that the word breathing is not what is going on? One can't describe it in words what's going on, but it is going on, and it is palpable, perceivable, or whatever word you want to use. It's there. Can one listen to this and not know what it is, realizing that the word breathing is much too limited to describe what is actually happening, and listening to this without knowing what it is? Feeling it. If a judgment comes up, my breathing is too shallow, then we're preoccupied or occupied with a judgment. With me again, and my comparisons with my breathing and somebody else's, it seems to be so nice and deep and regular. If I could only breathe like that. At that moment, no attention of the breathing, but comparison and imagery of what somebody else is and what oneself is. Or the other way around, the breathing is deep and one feels my breathing is really nice and deep right now. With that, the awareness is instantly fragmented. It's not awareness, it's just thinking, and the thinking influencing what is being perceived. Distorting it. One cannot perceive in wholeness when there's judgment and reaction against what is being perceived. So seeing that, seeing the effect of reaction, how it divides and separates. If reaction comes up, can it be seen and dropped? Not through willpower, but seeing what it does. It darkens the whole realm. One can't see anymore and feel and hear anymore. It deadens. Words and reactions are not the live reality. So if one sees it at a glance, can one stay with what actually is? Which is not the effort of willpower, but of energies remaining gathered in what is. Energies gathering in an open listening and attending, without knowing, without doing anything about what is being perceived. Feeling the urge to do something about it, but not going ahead with it. One sees what that leads to. It's so clear. Separation and isolation. The urge comes up when it's seen, and the energy of the urge is yielded to the attention. It gathers in listening, rather than going off into this channel or that channel and diffusing. This is not a focusing of energies anywhere. They're just gathering in not knowing, in listening without knowing. If I said, I must concentrate on my breathing because this is a good way of bringing my mind back from my fantasies, what happens? If I have this idea, I must concentrate on my breathing, be one with my breathing. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. Isn't there already a resistance against anything that is not attending to the breathing? If I have the idea or the instruction or whatever, it's associated with memory too, because somebody told me you will get someplace if you concentrate on your breathing. So having that in mind, that memory, and the possible reward of peace of mind, or whatever it is that I want to achieve, I say to myself, I must concentrate on my breathing as I wake up from a fantasy. Doesn't this mean I must resist anything which is not awareness of breathing? I must resist listening to the wind or the birds or the feeling of pain in the knee or the back, because all of that distracts me from concentrating on my breathing. And that takes this effort, because one has to resist being distracted, which usually doesn't work. We're distracted anyways. But one can cultivate the power of concentration. That is practicable. One can make progress in concentrating and resisting distractions. Which means, doesn't it, that the mind is moving in a very narrow yet energy-loaded channel. And this energy is often taken for a evidence of one's success. One feels the energy that comes with concentration. Just as if one lets sunlight fall through a magnifying glass and gathering it in one point, there's a hole there in the tablecloth. If one does it above a tablecloth. With this power of concentration, please look at it for yourself, from what one has observed in oneself and has observed in others. With this power of concentration usually goes an image of being good at something, a feeling of power, often an arrogance, or feeling elitist, vis-a-vis all those poor people who don't have this power of concentration. One becomes something with this cultivated ability. Even if one is not arrogant or conceited, one is the concentrator, isn't one? It starts out this way, I must concentrate. It doesn't question this whole realm of I, my will, my power, my motives and my goals. And it doesn't allow into awareness all that is labeled distraction. One can use this power of concentration to keep from surfacing all kind of disagreeable emotions like fear, anger, anguish, sadness. And one can also keep under control one's tendencies to seek pleasure in fantasies. Which doesn't mean that what is kept under control disappears or vanishes. I think every one of us is sufficiently aware of the fact that what is kept under control does more mischief than when it is allowed to surface to the light, be seen and understood, acknowledged. Not rejected and not accepted, just allowed to come up. Fear, anger, sadness, sorrow. Which is what does come up when a human being sits down in stillness and quietness, wondering about himself or herself. what one is, with no preconceived idea of what one should be or should become. And therefore not using any means to suppress anything, control anything, or achieve anything. Just sitting down and wondering what being a human being is all about. When the surface mind, which is one of our repressive mechanisms, is quieted and things do come up from the so-called unconscious layers of the mind. They're only unconscious because we don't pay attention to them. If there's attention, then there is no unconscious mind. It's all within reach. So, awareness has no motive and no focus. Can one be aware without attaching to what comes up in awareness or rejecting what comes up? Without labeling it or reacting to it in any way? Just seeing it and be done with it. People say, I see things, but I'm not done with them. They go on. Can that be seen? Or is one already caught up in judgment again or despair? Just to move along with something, not expecting it to stop, not expecting anything. That's not, then the cortex is involved, the memories and expectations. Just to move along with this little stream. Over the rocks and down the rocks, into a pool and down again and through a culvert, picking up debris and leaving debris behind. Times there's an enormous amount of bubbles there. Nobody knows where these bubbles come from in the stream. Looks like detergent. But the stream moves on. Can awareness be this swift stream, moving with what's there? Beware of the thought, it shouldn't be like this, it should be otherwise. At that moment one is stuck. Do you see that? If one sees it, one moves. Because what is something is what I want to find out, not what it should be. If I want it to be otherwise, then I have to exert willpower. And there's resistance and the whole drama on a new spot. and not know it. We will end here for today.